The Mazda CX-30 has been around for a couple of years now. This is the 2024 turbo model, and in today's video we're going to torture test its all-wheel drive system on the TFL slip test, as well as out in the trenches. We're going to get it up on the lift to see how it's engineered, and tell you everything you need to know about this small crossover. All right, welcome to the TFL slip test. In this test, we get various wheels stuck on purpose in these rollers to see how the all-wheel drive system and traction control system work to get us unstuck. This is an iconic test now. It's been around for a bunch of years, and you guys seem to like it, so we're gonna keep doing it. Now, this is the Mazda CX-30 Turbo, and the first test is the front wheel slip test. Both front wheels are stuck, and that power takeoff is gonna have to engage the rear wheels to get us unstuck. All right, foot off the brake, in neutral, in the drive. Nice gentle throttle application like you would expect if you were getting unstuck in the snow. Rear wheels engage quickly, and we drove right off. All right, for the diagonal test, the left front and the right rear stuck in the rollers, the other two opposite ends of the car on the ground. Imagine you're driving through some snow, some ice, some slush, you're going up on a steep curb, wheels start losing traction. This is what this test simulates. Into drive, we're settled, onto the gas. All right, so took a little bit of slipping. We run these tests, normal mode, traction on, like you would drive these cars every day, but we were able to get off. And then if we get really stuck, I have an off-road button, which looks like a car driving up a piece of spaghetti. We can try engaging that. All right, the next test, this is a really extreme test. This is where we start to separate the wheat from the corn. Is it wheat from chaff or wheat from corn?
I don't know.
You're from the South. The cream from the corn?
That sounds like an English phrase.
Wheat from the chaff. Anyways, where we separate the wheat from the chaff. So we've got both rear wheels are stuck. The left front is stuck. The right front is the only one on the ground. We're going to start out in normal mode, and we're going to see if that left front brake can grab, send torque, send wheel speed to that wheel on the ground and get us unstuck. So normal mode. Well, it's doing it. Okay, so what's happening? The system is working. So that wheel's starting to spin, but as it does that, it starts to torque the whole vehicle around its axis, and then causes the rear to slip off the roller. So we were able to get off, but it was more to the fact that the vehicle sliding off the rollers than that wheel really spinning up. But it was a successful test. So we're gonna try it one more time with the off-road spaghetti mode. All right, off-road mode engaged. Let's see if we have a performance difference. I'm gonna give it a little bit of left steering wheel. Huge difference. That is a result. So immediately those brakes started clamping down hard. We heard that traction control intervention, and the whole vehicle clawed itself out. A much better result. So that off-road mode really does make a big difference. Final test. 3-wheel slip test, but 1 rear wheel on the ground. The right rear is the only one with traction. It's a non-primary drive wheel, because keep in mind, CX-30 is still more or less front wheel drive based. Going right into the off-road mode. Let's see if we can get some wheel speed on that wheel to push us off. It's actually cool. There's enough torque transfer going on now where we can see the wheels on the ground are fighting for grip. So we're actually getting wheel spin, a little burnout, if you will. Which means that we're getting a lot of torque transfer. All right, here we go. Come on, baby, off-road mode engaged. It's fighting for it. Come on. Excessive all-wheel drive system low. Drive slowly until warning. Light turns off. Vehicle now in front wheel drive, is it? Oh man, so we were able to get off the front wheel slip test, but unfortunately we got the all-wheel drive light blinking on the rear wheel test, so we didn't quite have what it took to make our way off. A little disappointing. We're gonna have to cheat here or get a push from Case. There we go. All right, well, not a fantastic result in that final test. Not unusual in this category of vehicle. A little unusual that we got the all-wheel drive warning though. So the interior of the CX-30, quite a nice place to spend time, but you'd expect that in this trim because as configured, this one is $38,310. Now this is of course the turbo with the Premium Plus package. It's got this this black and brown interior, which, you know, my mom said never wear black and brown together, but it looks really quite good in here. So we've got a brown upper with a black lower. The interior of the CX-30 hasn't changed much since this car debuted a couple of years ago, but it is still a nice place to spend time. 10.25 inch screen here with wireless Apple CarPlay, which works great. You've got a relatively small sunroof, decent headroom here. Mazda still does one of the best steering wheels in the business, a partially digital instrument cluster, and then a lot of piano black. It's not totally piano black. It's got kind of like these little zigzags in it, but I find it scratches a little too easily for my liking. All right, hopping in the back seat. Well, things are a little tight back here, so 6 feet tall. If you're a little shorter than me, one thing you might enjoy is that the rear seat sits up pretty tall, which gives you a nice view out the front of the vehicle, a little bit of stadium seating going on. Legroom is just barely acceptable here, so a little bit of a concave in the back of the front seat, so my legs do kind of fit, and then width is a little narrow as well. It's not a fantastic back seat, and it doesn't do any fancy kind of fore or aft recline, so you're just kind of fixed in one position here, but we do have a couple of cup holders down here and a very large center hump. One thing quite nice about this premium spec is the power trunk, and that's going to reveal right about 20.2 cubic feet worth of space. It's a rather narrow opening, but it is nice and square, so you're not losing any space to weird angles. Underneath the floor, we do have our temporary spare tire and our Bose subwoofer, and then to fold the seats, we push a little button on the back of the seat rest there. That's going to fold nearly flat, about as flat as you can expect, just a small little hump here, but overall a pretty good sized trunk and good usability. So I really do like how this vehicle drives on the road. It's surprisingly quick with this turbocharged engine, quite refined. The ride quality is really good, and the steering especially is very, very, very good for a crossover. This is one of the more fun to drive crossovers in this small category, especially with that over 300 pound-feet of torque on tap. It does really well. But let's see how it does off-road. Now this is our trenches course on the Onyx Off-Road On-Race Pit course. Either these grooves cut into the ground, Onyx Off-Road, or go to off-road navigation software. We've got the off-road mode engaged here, the little spaghetti squiggle. Now, only about 7.9 inches of ground clearance, and these Bridgestone Turenza tires. Man, whoever did the traction control programming in the off-road setting did a hell of a job. It's really impressive. Just taking it nice and gentle on the throttle. That torque is great. That 6-speed torque converter is doing a great job of not fighting us like a CVT would or like a dual clutch would. And man, this is a key. This is a great example of how programming could just transform the performance of a vehicle. You know, there's nothing that special in the hardware of this vehicle. I mean, the turbo power is good, but it's just that off-road programming when you push that squiggle button clamps down hard on those brakes, and it got us up that with very little difficulty. Now on the slip test we did overheat the system. In the real world though, granted on a short course, it worked flawlessly. It's pretty darn good. Good work on that person that did the off-road mode. You did good. So we got the Mazda CX-30 up on the lift, and we can take a look at how this vehicle is engineered. Now up front, we're gonna find a transversely mounted 2.5 liter 4-cylinder turbo, because this is a turbo spec, 227 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque. So a very torquey engine. Now the engine runs side to side, of course, and it's made it to a 6-speed torque converter automatic transmission. So no dual clutch, no 8-speed, no 10-speed, just a very standard 6-speed under here. Now that's going to send its power to the rear wheels via a power takeoff. Not a lot to see under here though, because it is all heavily shielded. The drive shaft runs above the exhaust system, and we're going to find a McPherson strut front suspension, and then out back we're going to find kind of like a torsion beam style rear suspension. So it's basically one giant unit with this beam that connects the left and the right side. Not a particularly sophisticated rear end, but it works really well for the car. I know like the Motoring Press likes to give these vehicles heck for that. For me, driving around town every day, it's a very simple drive unit. And of course we've got our rear diff here. You know, there's really no shielding to speak of under here. This is not intended to be an aggressive four-wheel drive, but we do like to put it through its test on the rollers, and also in the trenches course to see how the four-wheel drive system, or in this case, all-wheel drive system works. So look folks, the CX-30 has a fine all-wheel drive system for snow, slush, ice, winter conditions, even really light off-roading. However, when things start to get a little tougher, I'm not convinced this all-wheel drive system can take the heat. Of course, it's not a true off-road intended vehicle. It is just a normal crossover. It's fun to drive, it's quiet, it's refined, but it certainly is not something I'd want to take off-road every weekend. Obviously, it's a CX-30. Well folks, let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, it's been Tommy behind the camera case. We'll see you in another episode.